Good evening, everyone. It's Doc Hardy. Welcome to the Doc Hardy Show, where we talk about Black people, Black issues, the Black community. And one of the things that I have observed on social media is a great concern among the Black community about COVID-19 and vaccines. Now, let me just say at the outset, I'm not going to give, this is not me giving my opinion or pushing you one way or the other, but I want to talk about the topic, and I have a guest who's going to help us do that. And she is Dr. Kecia Gaither, MD. How are you, Dr. Gaither?
I am fine, good sir. How are you? Thank you for
Good. Well,
inviting me.
welcome to the program. I'm glad that you agreed to come on. You are, I've been bragging about your credentials for 2 weeks, so people realize this is a serious matter. Tell my listeners a little bit about your background before we get into today's topic.
Okay, sure. Well, currently I serve as the Director of Perinatal Services and Maternal Fetal Medicine at New York City Health and Hospitals, Lincoln in the Bronx. I'm a Harlem girl, born and bred. I have a master's degree in public health and currently am pursuing my MBA MS at Cornell.
Okay, so more than qualified to talk about this subject. It's such a big topic, and I was grappling with how to address it. But let me just get right into it. Why is it, do you think, that there's such a great concern in the Black community about COVID-19 and these vaccines?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Our history is tied into not being well cared for from a medical standpoint, okay? The Tuskegee experiments are still very clear in a lot of our minds. There is still thoughts about J. Marion Sims, the quoted father of gynecology, who performed a lot of gynecologic surgeries on slave women without the benefit of anesthesia. I'm sure that many people have heard of Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington. This is a book that talks about how medical treatment has been rendered to people of color throughout, a number of years. So there is still that thought that, it's not to be trusted. I'm sure that everybody thinks about the etiology of certain diseases that crop up in melanated countries, Zika, HIV, Ebola. So understandably, there's some reticence. That's understandable.
So a lot of that seems to me is on the medical community. So how can the medical community, what can they do? What should they do? What are they doing to build trust with our community, with the Black community?
Well, I think everything is individualized. I think the most that the medical community can do, particularly physicians of color, to talk about what COVID is, how they came up with the vaccine to begin with, and, move forward from there. I think that's probably the best methodology, and certainly having media venues such as yourself, as well as others, and talking in the community at churches and so forth and so on via Zoom, of course, helps to give out a lot of information and hopefully decrease the fear that surrounds this vaccine.
Okay, so let's do a little bit of that today. So there's a lot of misinformation about what COVID-19 is. So what is COVID-19?
COVID-19 is a virus. It's a coronavirus. Coronaviruses have been around for years, but this particular one seems to be more active as far as attacking the respiratory system. There are other viruses that have been around, like SARS, which is a close relative of it, that have, been very, active in causing a lot of respiratory disease and death in other countries. COVID, like I said, is a relative of this particular virus, and it basically attacks for the most part, the respiratory system. It attacks a lot of other things as well, but primarily the respiratory system.
Okay, so do you think, or is it necessary for everyone to become vaccinated? Because I think that's the big question. Do I have to take this vaccine to fight this virus? Do I have to?
Coming from a medical perspective, yes. Coming from Kecia Gaither perspective, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I've had this conversation with a lot of my family members. Certainly they don't know me as Dr. Gaither, they know me as Kecia, little loud kid that used to run around. But um, yeah, I certainly do recommend taking the vaccine. So let me tell you what the vaccine is in a way that hopefully is readily understandable. Think of it like this. Think of the virus as a little Pac-Man, okay? But this Pac-Man has a blue hat on, okay? The manner in which they have made this vaccine is to take that blue hat, okay, and make it such that the body recognizes the blue hat. It's not a live virus in there, it's the hat, okay? And by priming the body to recognize that blue hat, when the actual blue hat does appear in your body, the body says, aha, the blue hat is here. And then they go about and, attack and kill it. Think of it as priming the immune system to recognize that blue hat that the COVID virus wears. That's basically what it is.
So one of the questions that comes up then is, traditionally, it takes years to develop a vaccine. This one came about very quickly. That has a lot of people concerned. So talk about the differences between this vaccine and traditional vaccines, the development.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think that there is that much difference. I think the technology has advanced to the point where a vaccine could be made in a more expeditious amount of time than what's been currently known. So I would not necessarily really focus in on the time element. Keep in mind that they've had almost a year to get this underway. And the coronavirus is not something that's a new virus. This particular strain is a new virus. And keep in mind, just like we get flu vaccinations, the flu is a virus. So the technology in order to make the regular flu virus is basically the same as what is being utilized for COVID.
Okay, that's good. Now, talk if you can about the clinical trials. Who was involved? What kind of happened? Kind of walk us through that, because there's questions about that. Who was tested? We heard people die during the testing. Kind of talk to us about the clinical trials for these vaccines.
Well, as in any new medication that comes about, there are certain methodologies that you have to follow. And one of the methodologies is doing quote unquote clinical trials where people of all, across all demographics, volunteer to be vaccinated and to follow them concerning, their symptomatology, how does it impact, various systems in the body and so forth and so on. So for this one, I believe that it was across the board, white, black, everybody.
Okay. Now, to my knowledge, and I might be behind, but I know that I guess 2 or 3 different vaccines have been approved. There's the Pfizer, the Moderna, and I guess Johnson & Johnson. Talk to us about those differences in those vaccines. What can you tell us?
Well, I mean, from what I am aware of, and I got the Moderna vaccine, so I just finished that. But I basically all of them are kind of formulated in the same manner. Some are more efficacious than others. Now, the specifics as to what makes the Moderna one a little, different than the Pfizer one as far as efficacy, the actual specifics, I can't speak to that.
Okay.
The one that's coming out acts in a little different manner than the first two, as far as, keeping you from transmitting it. So we'll see what happens with that one.
What are the potential side effects of the vaccine?
Well, I have the Moderna, so I can tell you what my side effects are. And pretty much it's the same side effects that I've had with when I've taken the flu vaccine. Fatigue, fever, and just feeling kind of out of it. So that I had that for about 36 hours, 36,
And have you had,
48 hours. Yeah.
do you require 2 doses with the Moderna?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had both?
Yes, I've had both.
Okay.
And the first one didn't bother me, but the second one, I can honestly say it kind of knocked me for a loop. I did have fever, I was just totally out of it, muscle aches. So, and that went on for a good 2 days. It took me a good 5 days to really get back to myself. I took it on a Friday, and that following Thursday, I felt like myself. But I was actually out from work for a day because I was just out of it.
Now, one of the questions that one of my listeners asked is, are vaccines safe for people who are pregnant, trying to become pregnant, or breastfeeding?
At this point in time, the American College of OBGYN is recommending it for pregnant women. Certainly when you think about the immunologic aspects of it, pregnancy is a point in time where your immune system is depressed. So it would be very advantageous for a pregnant woman to receive the vaccine. When you're pregnant, your immune system becomes depressed. The body is very smart. It depresses the immune system to allow the fetus, which is considered really a foreign object, to grow and thrive in the mom's body. So just by virtue of you being pregnant, your immune system is not where it should be when in a non-pregnant state. So yes, you should be taking the vaccine. Added to that, as that uterus grows, it impinges upon how your lungs are able to expand. So your lung function is kind of depressed. So, you have those two factors, your immune system and your lung function being depressed, which puts you at an increased risk of having some bad outcome from, this virus.
Well, one listener asked, will I still have to wear a mask after I take the vaccine? Will I still be contagious?
Yes.
So then the next question is, what's the point? That's what two people ask. If I have to wear a mask after I take the vaccine, why do I need to take the vaccine?
That's a good question. To answer that, I would say this. There are other variants that are now popping up. Okay. So to add a layer of protection against these new variants that are popping up, it is advised for you to wear your mask. And then I've recently read, as of yesterday, there have been at least 4 people who have had the COVID vaccine get COVID. Granted, they were, asymptomatic and certainly didn't have anything that put them in the hospital, but they still got it. So now whether these are variants that they got or something else, I don't know that as of yet.
So after the 2 doses, at what point will society achieve safety? In other words, when can we get back to normal? That's really the question a lot of people are asking. If I had to reframe it, when do we get back to normal? We're all vaccinated. When do we get back to normal?
Quote unquote normal. I don't think normal will ever come back. I think it's a difficult question to answer because there are a lot of facets about this virus that we just don't know. Anecdotally, just speaking on my own experience, I don't know, maybe by the end of the year, hopefully as more and more, and when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about just within the United States. As more and more people become vaccinated, as legislation is put in place as far as travel and how you need to either be vaccinated or show some kind of proof that you've been vaccinated or stay, in 10 to 14 days alone, that kind of thing. I think it's going to take a minute. I mean, because this thing is worldwide. Okay, it's worldwide, and people travel, which has helped to, allow it to flourish, so to speak, and is likely why that we have all these different variants now. I mean, we've got quite a few. There's at least 4 or 5 within the last 2 weeks that I've been aware of. So, this thing is a bit much, but we have to do what we have to do to contain it and hopefully get back to some semblance of where we were before. But to get back to normal, I think that's gone.
Okay. So where, what do you recommend? What sources do you recommend for members of our community, the Black community, go to learn facts and stay abreast of facts so that they're comfortable with taking these vaccines?
Certainly, if you're watching TV, Fauci, you know, he definitely is the person to listen to. Certainly, your physician. I think those are the two primary people that you really should be listening to.
Okay, so people need to get out there and see their doctors.
Absolutely. And let me talk about one other thing that is really important. You know, this virus seems to really attack those that have uncontrolled diabetes. So if I can speak to that particular segment of our population, getting yourself in control is utmost important. It is life-saving. You know, I've taken care of quite a few of patients who are pregnant with COVID. The ones that die are the ones that have uncontrolled diabetes. So if you're a diabetic, now is the time for you to really take this seriously, put down that piece of cake, get your blood sugars in control, because COVID will take you out in a heartbeat.
Wow, that's great advice. Okay, so our really maintaining our health,
Exactly.
our general health, to the best of our abilities is a part of this process of fighting COVID-19.
Correct. You know, there are things that one can do to help to boost your immune system naturally. Garlic, turmeric, onions, those are all foods that help to boost your immune function. Vitamin D, very important. Not only does vitamin D help to boost your immune system, it helps to boost your cardiovascular function, it decreases inflammation, and diabetes is really a state of inflammation. And for those pregnant women out there, vitamin D is really important for bone development of the baby, as well as decreasing the risk of preterm labor. And it certainly boosts mom's immunity. So those are things that I think are really important. And certainly being in the Black community, onions and garlic cooking, you know, particularly when you're cooking those greens and everything like that, that's, you know, that's nothing new. So that's something that should be continued.
Awesome. Down the line, will we need further vaccinations? What do you, or is this 2 doses and I never have to deal with this again?
I don't think anybody knows that right now, particularly given the fact that all of these variants are popping up. I can't answer that. I don't think anybody has the answer to that, honestly.
Good. We're going through here. So that's good. All right. So let's talk specifically about the one thing that keeps coming up whenever I hear this topic. You touched on it in the introduction, and that's the Tuskegee Study. Whenever I have a conversation with people about vaccines, invariably the Tuskegee Study comes up. And I don't think most people even know what it is. They just know that it's bad. Yeah. What can you tell us about the differences between that study and studies related to COVID-19?
Well, I don't think that they are equitable. So let me tell you what the Tuskegee experiment was, okay? The Tuskegee experiment was basically individuals injecting syphilis into unsuspecting people of color and watching to see what happened with such, even though the treatment of penicillin was known. They didn't give it, but they just watched what happened. And, you know, a whole generation of people were impacted because this went on for decades, okay? So basically, it was utilizing people of color, injecting them with syphilis, and then watching to see what happened, knowing that there was a treatment, which was penicillin. So that stays in people's minds, you know, of being used, Black people being used as guinea pigs, living guinea pigs, living human guinea pigs to see what happens. So when something novel comes out, then there's the thought, they're going to start using us as human guinea pigs to see what is happening. But in this particular instance with COVID, I don't think it's an equitable situation.
Okay. Because as you mentioned, it's global. It's a global event.
Global.
It's everybody
Everybody on the whole planet.
Well, that's you've given us a lot to think about. Your recommendation, of course, you've taken the vaccine,
yeah.
so you can speak to the Moderna, as you mentioned earlier. I think it's all great information that you have presented. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Now, you have is it one book or two books out there?
I have one book.
Let's talk about that. You know, you're an author, and you know, you're into empowering women. Talk to us about your book and how.
Well, this came out quite a while. It talks about self-esteem and, you know, things that you can do to build your self-esteem, how, you know, certain things are transgenerational, and just basically empowering you to follow your North Star, so to speak. That's basically what it is in a nutshell. It was myself as well as a number of other women who contributed to this book. I think it's a really nice little side piece for you to consider, particularly if you're pregnant, thinking about transgenerational self-esteem and how your feelings translates into how your baby adapts and grows and so forth and so on, because there is something to that.
What's the name of the book and where can people get it?
You can get it on Amazon, The Empowered Woman.
The Empowered Woman. Anything in closing, any final thoughts you can share with us to motivate our community to take some action? Because I'm concerned that I just read something today about the numbers are down. So even people in the medical field who are Black are not taking the vaccine in some cases.
Well, you know, I don't know what to say to that. I think that if you're in the medical field, your ear is really to the ground as to what's going on. You're certainly seeing it on the front lines as to what is happening. There are many who know that their facilities have been in the past, if not now, being converted to basically COVID units. So I think that it would be prudent to have everything at your disposal to prevent you from being one of the statistics on COVID. So, and really look at how this thing was made. Again, you're not getting the virus itself, you're getting its hack, so to speak, and just move forward with that information.
Dr. Gaither, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you.
To be on the Doc Hardy Show on WKBS Radio.
Thank you.
And, we wish you the best in your endeavors in the medical field, keeping everybody safe.
So much. Appreciate you having me on the show.
I'm Doc Hardy. She's Dr. Kecia Gaither. You've been listening to the Doc Hardy Show on WKBS. After a brief station break, we'll be back with business owner and hairstylist Teresa Gorham in